Hello, fellow Rebel Capitalists. Hope you're well. I've got a new good friend right here. Her name is Savannah Hernandez, and she is going to help me go over this new release of the Twitter files, kind of 2.0, I guess, that proves that shadow banning is real. And Savannah, we were just talking before going live. So for my viewers who don't know your backstory, can you kind of get them up to speed there? And then I think they'll understand why you are the perfect person to talk to about shadow banning.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on. And second off, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Savannah Hernandez, and I am a journalist that has worked on the ground for the past 2-3 years, uncovering the stories that the mainstream media continuously lies to us about. So back in 2020, I was extensively covering the Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots of 2020 because we had our entire media telling us that they were fiery but mostly peaceful, that every single, MAGA rally was a super spreader event, but the Black Lives Matter rallies were peaceful and they were necessary because of the pandemic of racism that we were all experiencing. So I was out on the ground actually covering what was going on, the riots, the destruction, people getting attacked, police looking the other way while Black Lives Matter was able to loot, riot, and destroy. And back in November of 2020, I was covering the Million MAGA March in Washington, D.C. I ended up taking a pan of the crowd singing the national anthem. It got retweeted by President Donald Trump. The tweet accumulated over 10 million views. And the next week, my entire reporting career was gone. Now, keep in mind at this point, I had many national news organizations linking to my work. For example, there were white Antifa members that were blocking the highway and got into a confrontation with a black man, keeping him from going to work via the highway in the name of racial justice and Black Lives Matter. So all of that footage was deleted. All of my proof that Black Lives Matter riots were not peaceful was deleted. And they said it was for a ban evasion. However, this was my only account. I never had any prior suspensions, never had any warnings. I just woke up one day and my entire career was gone. So fast forward about 9 months, and I created a Twitter account for my podcast because I said, you know what, this is BS. You guys have no reason to have banned me. So I'm going to make another account for my podcast. I then started using that to report again. And earlier this year at the 2022 NCAA Women's Swimming Championships, where Leah Thomas was swimming against the women and actually competing and winning and taking their championship titles, I found the one athlete that was brave enough to speak out against Leah Thomas, because if you remember, the entire mainstream was trying to tell us that it was very progressive and loving to have the first transgender woman swimming in a women's competition. However, the one athlete that was willing to speak out, because the NCAA was telling athletes behind the scene, do not speak to media, do not even say Leah Thomas's name in the locker room, she was brave enough to speak out. Her interview went viral on my Twitter account, accumulated over 2 million views. Tucker Carlson picked it up, and within 2 days, it was gone. I made one more account after that because I said, you know what, this is ridiculous. This is the media that the American people need to see. So I'm going to keep pushing back and I'm going to keep reporting the truth. I went to gas stations across America because I love letting Americans actually speak, right, against the narrative that we are being pushed by our government. So Joe Biden was saying that we had a very robust economy, that Americans had more savings in their accounts than they ever had before. This was earlier this year. I pulled up the exact tweets and I went to gas stations in lower income communities and I asked people, hey, Joe Biden says the gas prices are lowering, the economy is doing great. What do you think? That, of course, went viral because it was members of the Hispanic and Black community saying that's an absolute lie. Joe Biden's a horrific president and the economy is doing horribly. On top of that, I went to Pride in Washington, D.C., and I exposed a naked transgender person twerking in front of a child. We were being sold by the media that these Pride events were family friendly and good for kids. I showed a very different story. That clip went viral, over 4 million views. It was played on almost every single right-wing media network, or just media network at all, that was kind of shocked that children are being exposed to this. Within 2 days, yet again, my Twitter account was banned. So that's a little bit about me and why I'm so excited about everything happening at Twitter. I barely got my account back just 3 weeks ago, and it's been truly incredible to be able to report again.
So what's your handle now?
It's sav_says_. It's my original account that I got banned back in 2020. I have that back now.
So then just so people know, the Sav says with no underscore, that's your YouTube channel, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. And for those of my viewers and listeners who are wondering, I wasn't familiar with you up until a couple days ago when I was watching a clip from the Tim Pool show, the live show that he does, and you were on there and you just went off on, it was like Joe Biden, or it was something regarding freedom and liberty, and that caught my attention. I said, "My goodness gracious, this gal is just absolutely on fire here. She's
Thank
just
you.
she's just dropping bombs right and left." So that's what caught my attention. And boy, I think you've got a really, really bright future. But this shows us why that this shadow banning or outright banning is just so dangerous, because they're just trying to push a specific narrative, and anything that doesn't fit into that narrative, they just kind of try to sweep it under the rug. With this channel, in fact, Savannah, Josh, what was it? Maybe probably a year ago now, something like that. This was back when I was talking about the we'll call them the medicine mandates, right? Because we don't want to get banned from YouTube here.
Yes.
And I was really pushing back against that. And I just did this video talking about something that Fauci said. And maybe 2 hours later, maybe not even that.
It was actually a video of Fauci talking that got banned because it turned out to be misinformation.
It's because you can't quote the CDC on their own hypocrisy, guys. Come on. I almost lost my entire YouTube channel as well because I had the audacity to call out our government on their own backtrack. So
Well, they took my YouTube channel down for that. And
Oh
no
my gosh.
strikes,
Of
no
course they did.
warnings.
Mhm.
Just one minute it's there, the next minute it's completely gone.
It's ridiculous.
And fortunately, I got a pretty decent following on Twitter, so I tweeted that out, and then it kind of went viral on Twitter. And then Joe Rogan retweeted it, and then once
Nice.
Joe Rogan retweeted it, then magically I get an email from YouTube about an hour later saying, "Oh, what? Sorry about that.
We made a mistake. Sorry, we
bad."
accidentally deleted your entire career. Our bad.
Yeah,
We didn't realize
like
you
it
had a
was
big
some
enough
sort of-
platform to make it an issue. Whoops.
Yeah, it's just like it was some sort of technical error that they just didn't know
Yeah.
about, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. So let's go into this Twitter thread from the gal Barry Weiss, I think is her name, and this is part 2. And if you haven't seen this, guys, this is where they're actually proving. In fact, Twitter is admitting behind the scenes that they shadow banned people and would try to bring down their content as far as the algorithm. And let's shoot over to this, Savannah. So I'll go ahead and read it. Then I'd just love to get your views on it. So Barry Weiss starts off by saying a new Twitter Files investigation reveals that teams of Twitter employees build blacklists, prevent disfavored tweets from trending, and actively limit the visibility of entire accounts or even trending topics, all in secret without informing users. Savannah, what do you think?
I'm not surprised in the slightest. When I first read this, I said, you know what? Here's the proof and the evidence of everything that we already knew. As a journalist myself, who was specifically targeted, I have so many friends who went through the exact same thing. Our entire careers were hindered and we were silenced for, again, having the audacity to truly push back against the government narrative. Remember that The Intercept put out an article just a couple months ago, maybe even a couple weeks ago, about how Vijaya Gadde, one of the top Twitter executives, who, by the way, is named in this thread, she keeps coming up when it comes to censorship. Remember that she was working hand in hand with her own DHS to decide via our government what disinformation or misinformation was. And that was specifically tied to, the withdrawal of Afghanistan, COVID-19 policy. I think racial justice was also listed in there. So not surprising in the slightest.
Yeah, this actually, I'll be honest, this did surprise me a little bit, because now the outright banning, I get that, what happened to you and what happened to me, and I knew that was most likely arbitrary. There wasn't some algorithm that they had that was doing that. But as far as the actively taking something that would go viral and pushing it down to where no one sees it, I always thought to myself, yeah, they might be doing that to a certain degree, but probably not a lot, because you would think they would want as much engagement on their platform as possible, because they're a publicly traded company. And the more engagement they have, the more advertising dollars they can bring in. So from a financial standpoint, it would seem counterproductive to have them kind of do this type of shadow banning. But now that I read this, I'm like, hey, I knew it happened to a certain degree, but I was really surprised to realize that most of these people and content creators out there that were complaining about being shadow banned, they were probably right on the money and maybe understated it.
See, I am of the opinion that information is currency, one of the most valuable currencies that we have, more valuable than money, right? So you're
Yeah.
looking at this from a business standpoint of, okay, why wouldn't you want more engagement on the platform? More engagement equals more ad revenue. I look at this from the standpoint of we have an entire organization, an entire company that is able to shape the reality of the world, of an entire nation, that is allowed to shape and dictate what we are all doing, what we are all seeing, what we are all living out, what our truth is. And that, I think, was much more valuable than any ad revenue could ever be. Being able to have power over an entire population is the ultimate currency and the ultimate, I guess, again, power that you could have.
Yeah. And again, and we'll get into it here with as this thread continues. But one thing that it seems is that Jack Dorsey didn't really, he knew some of this was
Uh-huh.
going on, but it
Yeah.
seemed like a lot of what was happening here, especially with the shadow banning, was employees taking it upon themselves to do this based on their political team, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the higher ups in the company might not have even known. And I know that sounds astonishing or totally unbelievable to someone that's never run a business. But here I will play devil's advocate from the standpoint of before I retired in 2012, Savannah, I was an entrepreneur for many years. And I ran businesses all the way from startups. The largest business I ran had about 100 employees. And I get it. If you got a startup with 5 employees, you know everything, absolutely everything. But once you get to where you've got 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, you can't really completely know everything that is going on, even in your own platform. So that's what I thought. It seems like there was a lot of drama, even within Twitter, how you had maybe these different. I mean, obviously, most of them are on Team Blue, but maybe some of them on Team Blue uh, weren't approving of this specifically, but yet it was still happening. I mean, I thought that's what I found very kind of interesting.
Definitely. I mean, they had a monopoly on our speech for such a long time. And it was funny too, because as Elon Musk came in after he officially bought Twitter and he was cleaning house, we were seeing all of these videos too that Twitter employees would take of like, oh, here's a day in headquarters. We have wine
Yeah.
on tap. We
Yeah.
have, the sleeping pod rooms because it's super hard to work 3 hours a day,
Right.
censoring people and silencing information. So, we saw the reality of what was really going on behind the scenes at Twitter. Not only did you have these higher executives that were trying to censor and silence information that went against the government narrative or even their own political narrative. Remember that it was the contractors that came out at Twitter. There was one that was recently interviewed by NBC, and she identified she was a transgender woman who, again, that's a denial of basic science a lot of time with this community. And that was who was allowed to dictate what our truth was for a long time. These were the employees in Twitter. So again, seeing this type of stuff is not surprising. And with the amount of employees too, because remember when Elon Musk took over, he got rid of the majority of Twitter's workforce, and everybody was saying, oh, Twitter is going to shut down. It's going to be horrible now because we're not going to have anybody running it. And then you saw, after those firings, Twitter is running better than ever. So, like you said, I think it's better to consolidate and have that smaller company. And Elon basically walked into this gigantic adult daycare and he had to clean it up, basically.
That's a good way to put it. A gigantic adult daycare.
Yeah.
All right. So next, let's see, next tweet here. Twitter once had a mission to give everyone power to create share ideas, information instantly without barriers along the way. Barriers never. Okay, got it. Now this is really where it, this is where it could have impacted people's health. I mean, right here, I don't know if you know Dr. J. Bhattacharya, I believe is how you pronounce his name. I've heard him quite a few times on Tom Wood's podcast. But you got a Stanford doctor here who was just simply arguing that COVID lockdowns may have some unintended consequences, which now we know that they 100% do, even outside of just the economic costs. So Twitter recently placed him on a trends blacklist,
Yeah.
which prevented his tweets from trending.
Yeah, I mean, remember during COVID-19 when we actually had a lot of accredited doctors that were also just deleted off of Twitter as well because they were talking about early treatment or they were talking about, treatments that were not, I guess, necessarily FDA approved. These were the same doctors that Joe Rogan had to use his own platform on, which is not here on YouTube, by the way. It's on Spotify. He had to go to a completely different platform just to allow these people to speak. And again, everybody knows Joe Rogan's interview style. He actually does push back. He asks the questions of his interviewee to really make sure that he's fleshing out why they've gotten to that conclusion. These were accredited doctors that he brought on who were able to explain their viewpoint. And Twitter has still been unable to explain to us why they've been banned for sharing their own views on, COVID treatment and COVID, treatment, basically.
Yeah, Savannah, you probably don't know this, but I've got a mastermind group, and we invited Dr. Peter McCullough to speak at our group. And this was maybe 6 months ago or something like that. And he gave a great presentation, but afterwards, I had the opportunity to sit next to him at lunch. And so you kind of get to know someone a little bit better. And I can tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, he is very, very passionate about his beliefs. He is, whatever he says, he's not saying on a whim. He's not saying it to create drama. He's not saying it to get media attention or to sell books. He truly, truly, truly believes exactly what he says and backs it up. So that was one of the gentlemen that you're referring to that had to go on Joe Rogan just to get his view out there in the public, a view that I think 99% of the American population would have wanted to hear, especially during a time of this pandemic when we're all trying to sift through what's real and what's not real and what we should do to, protect our families.
Exactly. And you had these fact checkers who probably just graduated from Berkeley, allowed to dictate that this doctor was wrong, allowed to silence an accredited doctor. Because keep in mind, too, even the fact checkers here on YouTube, who are these people? Are they accredited doctors? Are they scientists? Are they, experts in whatever craft they're censoring in? We don't know.
Yeah. And then even if they were, I mean, they've just got such an agenda because now politics is just basically a religion.
For
So
real. It's a mess.
whatever their team says or whatever their preacher says, they're going to fall right in line. Okay, so or consider the popular right-wing talk show host Dan Bongino. I don't know who Dan is. Do you know who Dan is?
Dan Bongino, yep, he's a very popular talk show host. He has a show on Fox News. He has his own podcast. I think he was also he was like a former, I'm not sure if it was Secret Service agents, but he worked in the White House. I believe it was Secret Service.
He kind of looks like that. He kind of looks like a Navy SEAL dude or something.
Yeah, so very, very popular on the right.
Yeah, so this gentleman was also put on the blacklist along with Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk.
Who's a conservative gentleman, isn't he?
I actually work with Charlie with Turning Point. They help with my reporting. But not surprising that he was silenced.
Yep. So now we go on to what you were saying there about this gal.
Vijaya Gadde.
Yeah, it says Twitter denied that it does such things. In 2018, Twitter's Vijaya Gadde, then head of legal policy and trust, and Kayvon Bakapur, head of products, said, "We do not shadow ban." They added, "And we certainly don't shadow ban based on political viewpoints or ideology."
Well, that was a lie.
Yeah, you kind of got caught red-handed there, guys. Okay, next, what many people call shadow banning, Twitter executives and employees call visibility filtering. How Orwellian, right? I love how they always have these words to make what they're doing sound so so benign, right?
I tweeted to one of my friends because he was banned from Twitter for 5 years. I was like, "Hey, Alex, remember when we were visibility filtered for years on Twitter? That was fun, wasn't it?"
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So they basically this visibility filtering as being a way for us to suppress what people see to different levels. It's a very powerful tool. And that was a quote from one senior Twitter employee. And I guess Barry not only received these documents, but then she actually went out and interviewed some former and current employees to get their views on the specific documents themselves to try to confirm what her conclusions were. Okay, so this also affected the trending, it looks like. So this VF refers to Twitter's control over visibility. It used VF to block searches of individual users. My goodness. So even if you're not one of these people that's being shadow banned, if you're just an average Joe and Jane and you do a quick search for we'll call it medicine efficacy, and people know
Mhm.
what I'm talking about here. Uh, Twitter would have skewed your search results so that you would only get what they wanted you to get. That's basically what's going on here. Unbelievable.
See, and so I do my own show as well, and there will be times where I want to pull up a specific tweet or video, specifically on Joe Biden's latest gaffe, right? And typically, when Joe Biden gaffes, it's trending all over Twitter. Everybody's making fun of it. Even on the left wing, they're laughing at it, like, "What's going on?" People are making memes out of it. But if you go into Twitter's search bar and you search for, the original video, Twitter will suppress that, and that was
Mm.
something that I was seeing for a long time. And it's very similar to what Google does with their search engine as well. One of the best examples of this is by searching Donald Trump's name versus Joe Biden. If you search Donald Trump, and you go into images, all of the images are like the ugliest images on the
Oh yeah,
face of
where he's
planet
like
Earth.
that one where he's pointing his finger and he's like, ah.
Yeah, exactly. And then you look up Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton. I'm not even joking. You can type in Hillary Clinton evil on Google, and the first images are her like looking so beautiful, and you like have to scroll to get to the images of her looking really scary. But
Right.
these types of search engine filters are not only seen on Twitter as well. So again, this is something that we've seen on the big tech for a long time, and to the viewers as well who might be shocked by this. Like, wait until you see what's happening on all the other platforms, y'all.
That's a great point, Savannah. Great point. It's definitely not just. I mean, if this is real, which obviously it is. I mean, just think the extent to which this is happening at Facebook, for heaven's sakes. I mean,
Oh,
I
good
would
Lord.
argue they're probably a heck of a lot worse than
Of
Twitter.
course they are. Yes.
Jeez. All right. So let's keep going here. The group decided that whether to limit the reach of certain users was a strategic response team. Okay. So I guess they had an SRT team that they called it that would handle, they say, up to 200 cases a day where they were trying to basically play Big Brother. Let's see. But it existed a level beyond official ticketing, beyond the rank and file moderators following the company's policy on paper. That is the site integrity policy escalation support. So I think what she's saying here is that, yes, you had these groups where the case was supposed to go to, but a lot of times just the individual fact checkers, if you will, would sit there, and if it was something that really made them sad, or would
Trigger
prompt them
them.
to go, trigger them or prompt them to go to a safe space,
Yeah.
then they'd go ahead and delete it immediately before it could even go up the chain of command.
And you know what, George? One of the funniest things about this too is that like one of the catalysts for Elon Musk buying Twitter is that they banned the Babylon Bee. Elon was on their podcast, and for viewers who aren't aware, the Babylon Bee is a satire site. Where they will write funny headlines about what we're living through in the modern day, and oftentimes people can't differentiate between whether it's a real headline or not, because that's how crazy modern day society is. And so
Right, right.
Babylon Bee was one of the people who was restricted and who was banned. And that was one of the catalysts for Elon finally saying, you know what, comedy isn't even legal on Twitter anymore. Let's make a change here.
Yeah, yeah. And comedy has, throughout history, has always been one of the main ways that you push back against dictators, authoritarians, and censorship. And right here, to your point, Savannah, Barry talks about Libs of TikTok. I correct me if I'm wrong, but that's another comedy type thing as well, isn't it? It says one of the accounts that rose to this level of scrutiny was Libs of TikTok, an account that was on the Trends blacklist and was designated as do not take action on user without consulting this kind of higher up group, but it proves that they were also shadow banned and blacklist. So can you tell us about Libs of TikTok?
Sure. So Lips of TikTok is an incredible account where they basically all they do is go on TikTok and find the crazy people on there who are exposing themselves for being crazy, similar to what I do out on the street. You know, you go and you allow people to talk for themselves. She simply takes their TikToks, posts them on Twitter, and they go viral because you have people saying, oh, if you refuse to date a transgender woman as a man, then you're transphobic. If you go to the gym, that's violence against the fat community and you're fat phobic. If you I can sit here all day long and spew all of the nonsense. You have all the kids on here who are like, I go by frog pronouns. Here's how to use
Oh,
them. Oh,
geez.
I identify as a cat and I use a litter box. It's just this crazy, dark corner of the internet that she highlighted to show how insane things are getting in our society, to highlight Gen Z being brainwashed and indoctrinated by our schools and by our government as well. So that's simply what she did. Her account blew up, and for that reason she's been placed on this blacklist. She's one of the people who highlighted a lot of my videos as well. She retweets a lot of the insanity and highlights the truth about what's going on in society, and for that she was put on a blacklist.
Yeah, and further, I think she was doxxed. Wasn't I mean, I think
Yeah,
if
she
my
was
memory
doxxed by
serves me right.
Taylor Lorenz of the Washington Post. And if nobody's familiar with Taylor Lorenz loves to cry about how hard it is for her to, be a writer on the internet, because she's one of the people that focuses on cyberbullying and, bringing people like that to justice. She was doxxed by that journalist.
Yeah, and when we say doxed, we're talking about her personal address. Let's see, right here. Compare this to what happened when Ratchik herself was doxed on November 21st. A photo of her home with her address was posted in a tweet that has garnered more than 10,000 likes. Yeah, so this is what you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go down here. In an internal Slack message, Twitter employees spoke of using technicalities to restrict the visibility of tweet. Okay, here we go. So this is really more mind-blowing stuff. And let me just summarize. What would happen is someone would complain, like Savannah would complain and say, hey, why on earth did you ban my Twitter account? All I did is just repost something that someone on TikTok said.
Mm-hmm.
And they would give you some runaround like, oh, well, it was a violation of blah, 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 blah. And what they admit to is that it really wasn't a violation of anything, but they just kind of had to make up something that it might fit into just to give them the excuse to ban you because you were triggering them. That's literally
Yeah.
what was happening here.
Yeah, they were like, maybe if the rule doesn't exist, we'll just make it exist because we don't like this.
Yeah, or what they do, like the IRS, is their rules will be so extensive that really anything you do, they can figure out a way to make that seem as though you broke the rules.
Well, exactly. I mean, I think they did this very well by saying, oh, you can't be involved in hate speech. What is hate speech?
Right.
Is
Exactly.
somebody saying that I'm ugly hate speech? Is somebody saying, oh, I don't like the color blue hate speech? What really is hate speech? It really, is defined by each individual.
Right. And that's the intention, to make the terms so broad that they can fit into whatever definition you want for the specific instance.
Exactly.
All right, here's 6 days later in a direct message with an employee on the health misinformation, privacy, and identity research team. Oh my gosh. The fact that they even have a team that's called that has misinformation in the title is just utterly ridiculous. Okay, Roth requested more research to support expanding non-removal policy interventions like disabling engagements and de-amplification. In other words, this VF that you were referring to.
Visibility filtering.
Wow. So I don't want to go through the whole thing here because I want to be respectful of your time, Savannah. But why don't we do this? I think people kind of get it. And if they want to, they can go to Twitter. I think we've hit the main talking points here. But I know you've had a few videos on your YouTube channel that have just seems like they've just blown up and gone viral over like the last month.
They
So,
really have. It's crazy to me too, because I've had my YouTube channel for the past 2 years. And again, going into the censorship and shadow banning, I was using my channel during the duration of 2020 to 2021 to highlight everything that was going on with COVID. And I was severely punished for that. So I think that's why it's taken so long for my videos to finally gain traction.
well, they're getting like hundreds of thousands of views, and it's basically you going out there and just interviewing people at these events, like these Antifa rallies and maybe the gay pride festivals and whatnot. Just basically
Hmm.
asking them questions and seeing their response, and often their response is what you would expect, just like in a deer in headlights. I remember one video you were talking to some gal about white privilege,
Hmm.
like that. And you're very nice, of course, and then and very respectful. And then you just ask the gal, okay, can you give me a specific example of how white privilege has affected you? You just get the Jeopardy music, and
Yeah,
then like
it's
and then
always
like
my
10
favorite.
seconds, they're like, okay, sorry, we gotta go. Bye, Savannah.
Yeah, exactly. And I love doing too with my edits, like the slow zoom in as they try to think about it. And I had this one girl, I'm not joking, she was silent for a straight 15 seconds, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a long time, to just
Right.
sit there and be like, why do I think that white men have more privilege than me? And why am I this angry about it, but can't think of one reason of how that, they benefit more than I do. It's absolutely hilarious.
Just makes you realize that they're just regurgitating talking points. They're not
Exactly.
using critical thinking at all.
Exactly. Another one of my video series that have been doing very popular as well is going to progressive cities, because like I said, I really like to highlight what the media is underreporting. I'll actually be in San Francisco next week because I'm going to go detail their fentanyl crisis. I was just in
Mm,
Kensington Avenue in Philadelphia 2 weeks ago. I was attacked by a drug user on the streets because I was trying to expose their needle exchange program that happens in public every single week over there. I was in Portland. I watched somebody overdose in front of me, and then another person rob a local store. I spoke to the business owner who told me, hey, this happens 2 to 3 times a day. So, on top of the fun man of the streets, where we are allowing liberals to just simply expose themselves via their own mindset, it's been great to be able to report on the realities of progressive and loving policy, the realities of what our government is doing to our cities, and how horrific things really are getting. It does seem like portions of America have devolved into a third world country, sadly.
yeah, yeah. But the good news is, I think if people just are woken up by content like yours, then they can come together, they can push back and just stand up for freedom, liberty, and free market capitalism, and take back a lot of the things that have been taken from us, or especially since COVID and over the last couple years here. So I can't suggest your channel enough. Just a reminder, it's Sav SAV says. Oh, Josh is just putting it up right here, so you guys can check out her channel. And Savannah, I appreciate your time. We're gonna have to have you come on maybe periodically when we have topics that come up in the news that are kind of in your wheelhouse, to get your opinion on that and let you just kind of go off and drop more bombs and spit more fire.
Definitely. I love doing it. I love exposing the government. Anytime I can call out our government or our education system, anything at all, I'll do it. So thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Thanks.